Good afternoon, councillors. Welcome along. I declare this meeting open. Councillors, we have a request from Councillor Hayward, who is in Roebourne at the moment, for him to participate in this meeting via phone. Can someone move that we give approval for that to occur? Councillor Cook, seconder. Councillor McCleary, all in favour? You were happy to second, yeah, and everybody voted in favour. That's carried. So welcome, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Under announcements, councillors, for the December and January period, my fuel costs were $68.91. Last week, we farewelled a former Superintendent of Police of the South West, John Watson. Very sad to see John passing, but it was a terrific funeral, and great respect for that man who did a lot of good work in the South West when he was the police superintendent. Councillor Steck is here. We'll deal with her her leave of absence request shortly. Any declarations of interest, councillors? Are they confirmation 7.11? So I'm prepared to move the minutes of the last meeting be confirmed. Councillor Cook, seconded. Councillor Steck, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Hayward. Are there any petitions? Thank you. We have a request for a presentation tonight, delegation from Mr Craig Edwards and Lisa Bourne from 65 Thomas Street, wishing to speak to item 10.4.1. Those who approve that, please indicate.
Yes.
That's approved. Thank you. When we get to that item, I'll invite you up and you have 5 minutes to speak to it. Councillors, dealing with tonight's agenda, the only item I have coming out is 10.41. Does anybody else have any other items they wish to discuss? If that's the case, can I someone move the balance? Councillor Cook, seconder. Councillor McGuinness, all in favour?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. We go to 10.41. Are you both speaking or just one? Righto. So this is Craig. Craig Edwards, welcome. Craig, you're speaking on item 10.4.1. You have 5 minutes. There's a clock in front of me somewhere that'll guide you.
Front of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome along.
Yes, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. This is regarding a fence application that I've actually put in for my property at 65 Thomas Street. The original application was for a rendered brick fence, which was passed by planning. By the time we actually got around to actually starting to put this fence up, we'd actually already put it up around the pool area and had the pool area made safe. So that's on the North Street side. After a trip to Melbourne and having a look at the fences over there, we decided that our rendered brick fence probably wouldn't look the best, fairly uninteresting. So we decided to actually go for a timber and minior constructed fence, and so we put in for approval to have that actual changed. And the idea for there as well was that we wanted to actually not have permeable panels from the North Street to Thomas Street truncation, which is an 8 metre truncation across that area. Now that truncation is 9.4 metres from the actual corner, so our verges in that area are fairly large. Plus with that, we actually looked at the front gate where we'd put it on the driveway, and we decided that we probably wouldn't like a truncation across there either, because it makes it easier to build the fence and to actually aesthetically it'd be more pleasing. The driveway to that gate is actually 7.4 metres to the road. So truncation, I understand the idea of truncation is actually have some viewing area for any passers-by. We don't have a footpath on Thomas Street. I don't think we're ever going to get a footpath on Thomas Street. The house has been there for 50 years. A vehicle would be fully past the fence by the time, before it actually even hit the road. You've got 7.5 metres of verge, which I kindly look after for council. So I've put in to planning to actually have that passed, and unfortunately it's got to now. I'm standing in front of council arguing my case. Yes, that's where it stands. I don't think having the permeable panels in the style of fence would actually enhance it at all. I'm actually trying to beautify my house and the streetscape and do something a little bit different than the normal colorbond fencing, which there are numerous in the area that actually don't meet the R code, which have been given permission to actually have no permeable panels along areas, across the truncation, panels in their primary fence as well. So I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I think I'm asking a reasonable request. There are examples in the area of where these have been allowed, a number on King Road, of course, and Hayes Street. So yes, I'm asking for council to approve. I have actually been around all my neighbours, and they've all signed a letter to say they're happy to have the fence built the way I want it built. That's all the neighbours that are in front and the side, North Street and Thomas Street. So that's my proposal. That's where I stand.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
You have a question? You take a seat. Thanks, Mr. Edwards. Councillor McGuinness.
I have a conflict of interest on this item.
Okay, you can, yes, yeah. You can tell us all about it when you come back. Councillors, we have two recommendations on this item, and I'm happy to entertain either one. Councillor Brown.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to propose the alternative recommendation to Council, deleting 1.3 on the bottom of page 22 and including the words that are shown at the top of page 22. So 1.3.
We'll just, Jamie can just make that's actually included in the recommendation.
Sorry, Councillor, you're also suggesting deleting those paragraph at the top of page, what was on page 22?
Take away the or and make that 1.3. That
A seconder for that. Councillor Steck, thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillors. Thanks, Craig, for speaking. I'd firstly like to thank Craig for his presentation, and secondly like to thank him and all the renovators in the City of Bunbury who have put their hard-earned investment dollars into our city, regenerating our ageing housing stocks, modernising our suburbs and making greater use of our existing infrastructure. This renovation is one example of the many grassroots developments that take place across Bunbury every day. I visited the site to see the renovation for myself. Mr Edwards has done a great job in making the best out of an awkwardly shaped 1960s house. In addressing the reasons for rejecting the proposed fence, my reasonings to allow the fence under this proposal are, firstly, the site is unusual in that it has an average 7-metre grass verge on its frontage and its boundary. The corner truncation has a verge of 9 metres. Normally, a verge in newer areas, say in Millbridge or Treendale, has a typical verge width of between 4 to 5 metres. This is quite a difference, and when taking this into account, I feel the design principle for sightlines in this instance is satisfied. Secondly, I think more weight should be applied to the owner's right to privacy, and with due respect, disagree with the comments that there should be little weight to privacy due to the setback of the pool being 15 metres. On the contrary, the neighbour across the road has a clear view of not only the glass panelled fence, but the alfresco area and outdoor deck located adjacent to the front fence. I think allowing these variations will enhance the livability for the neighbourhood and provide safety and privacy to the outdoor entertaining and pool areas for the owners. I think as a progressive and innovative council, we need to have more tolerant and pragmatic approach to planning matters and an attitude that allows us in circumstances to give a degree of flexibility to these guidelines, to allow some sensible variations by bending without breaking the rules. The R codes are great for new homes in new residential suburbs, but where you are trying to retrofit a 1960s house into a contemporary 21st century home with modern conveniences, then I think that homeowners should be given some wriggle room. As a city, we do not have the luxury of large reserves of greenfields development sites to create R code compliant boxes. We need to be creative and innovative in retrofitting our ageing housing stocks, gentrifying our suburbs and making better use of our current infrastructure. I don't believe we're setting any grandiose precedent in this case, and I personally think that the fence as pictured on the attachments and shown in the plans will be a stylish and fresh addition to the street. This may seem a minor issue to council, and I respect the council staff's recommendation based on the R codes, but I think there is a place for common sense in these decisions we are making, and as such, we should vote for our recommendation here. Thank you.
Councillor Steck. Sorry, Councillor McCleary, you have a question?
With this amendment to the alternative, are we bending or are we actually breaking the building code at this particular time? Could that be answered by CEO through you?
Yes, I can ask the CEO to answer that question.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I probably defer to either the Acting Director or the Manager. This is more a matter of the residential design codes at this stage rather than the building code, but perhaps the Manager may be able to provide further guidance.
Excuse me, sir, if I may, sorry to interrupt you, but I was going to remove an amendment that deals with the aesthetics of the area, because when we go against officers' recommendations on design principles, we do have to have a valid planning reason, and I've got that written up just here, sir.
You have seconded this actual motion, Councillor Steck, so just I'll deal with Councillor McCleary's question, give Mr Farnsworth another 30 seconds of deep contemplation to answer yes.
Your Worship, the block is a corner block, so some of the conversation, the presentation concerning the pool, etc., we would have taken as in the backyard. The attachment we provided, which gave you a streetscape character and fencing diagrams and illustrations, we accepted the need to have privacy for pools. So the sections of fencing referred to that are solid in the area of East Bunbury and other parts of the city do have things like outdoor living areas or swimming pools behind them, and in that case the R codes is quite explicit and says of course we can provide privacy to them. So the proposed area that we would certainly recommend, it was 1.8 metre high solid fencing, involves the pool area, the backyard, all the way up the sides of the house. The frontage is the immediate frontage to the north, and that's the Thomas Street frontage. We're not talking about the North Street frontage. So we're talking two frontages, and I think that can get a bit confusing. In that sense, the decision of council to permit 1.8 metre high solid front fencing would be a clear contradiction to the R codes. One consideration is, yes, sightlines to passing road users, etc. The second consideration in the design principles refers to passive surveillance of the streetscape. So if council was satisfied that it did not put that as an issue of planning merit, that would be clearly contrary to the ARC codes. In those instances, I usually recommend that council has a planning policy position. Otherwise, we're just going to keep doing this each time people come in. Or council makes a decision to go with the recommendation, as we said, and this issue falls away, and we have a consistent decision making across the city. If you go with, you do want to support this, it will leave the officers not really knowing how to satisfy that going forward. We can be as flexible as you like, but it's very clear. Passive surveillance, 1.2 metre is permeable above. There's no question about that. We would have to, in the life of the council, assume that your position is you're comfortable with solid front fencing. That's as far as we'd be able to go.
Thanks, Councillor McCleary. My interpretation of all of that is that we can be very flexible. We do need to provide guidance to our officers when dealing with these matters into the future, and I suspect that was Councillor Steck was getting to. So you can bend, you can't break. This is allowing the council to be of a view that in this situation, giving approval to the fence as Councillor Brown and seconded by Councillor Steck has proposed is fine. We're bendy, we're not breaking. Councillor Steck, do you wish to? Councillor Kelly?
I'm assuming from what I can see on the screen that 1.4 has come out.
No.
No, it hasn't. Thank you.
No. Councillor Steck, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, please, sir. Thank you. And thanks to Councillor Brown, who summed it up quite well. But I do understand that there are some concerns amongst councillors in the room in relation to going against an officer's recommendation. Heed not, we've done this before. There are several areas under planning grounds that council does have discretion. And in those discretionary grounds is that this development will in actual fact improve the aesthetics of the area, and therefore I would suggest to council that go for the motion, because clearly there is benefit for the entire area. Again, sir, I do need with your guidance to add a number 2, and that would be exactly as I've stated, sir, and that would be the proposed development will enhance the aesthetics of the area. And that covers ourselves under planning rules.
I'll ask Councillor Brown if you're happy just to include that. You are? Yeah, thank you. So we'll include that in the
Yes, sir.
main motion, so that's fine.
All right, thanks, sir. Well, then, councillors, you really don't have anything to worry about under planning grounds, and I would suggest that you approve the matter.
Speaker against? Councillor Kelly.
Just on that, obviously, we're not taking that as an amendment. We're taking it as an agreement by the mover and the seconder, Councillor Steck and Councillor Brown, or the other way around. Can I just get a clarification from the CEO about how we're expected to judge this as improving or enhancing the aesthetics of the area on that technical point, given that this is a decision that we have to defend, and aesthetics are, I think, defined, but just get some guidance from the officers about how we're defending the statement that it will enhance the aesthetics of the area.
I'm happy to ask the CEO if he wants to respond to that or flick it on.
Just to start with, Mr Mayor, we did change that wording slightly, Councillor Steck, so just to make it in context of a resolution of council, and I understood initially when you first spoke that this was about a reason as to why the officer's recommendation was being overturned, to give some defence to that position.
That's correct, Mr CEO, because our staff has to follow guidelines, and therefore anything that doesn't comply has to come before council. So they can always have a way forward as their measurement, because the measurement is if it doesn't comply, it comes here.
So, Mr Mayor, then in relation to Councillor Kelly's question, it becomes a position of the council rather than a recommendation of the officers.
Yep, no, that's fine. And I've accepted that number 2. I don't see it as being detrimental or beneficial. I see it as being a neutral comment. And if the officers weren't inclined to submit an alternate recommendation, then they shouldn't have. So, is there a speaker against this? Councillor Kelly.
Ask that 1 and 2 be taken separately. Thank you.
I can do that. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Hayward, do you wish to speak against?
No, I don't, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put it, as there's no debate, I'll put it 1, that is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, all in favour?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry?
Sorry, you're going to incorporate the advice note into it?
Yes, yeah. Those against? 1 is against, that's carried. Item 2, those in favour, please indicate. Those against? 1. Are you for that, number 2, Councillor Hayward?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, thank you. That's 1 vote against, that's carried. Thank you very much. The next item, I think, is the leave of absence request. Councillor Steck, you wanted retrospective leave of absence from the 7th of February to the 19th of February. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Steele, seconder. Councillor Brown, all in favour?
Yes.
I beg your pardon. Can someone invite Councillor? We've already forgot about him. We've already forgot about him. Sorry about that, Councillor. So, can the minutes show that Councillor McGuinness was actually, yeah. And we also have a further request from Councillor Miguel for leave from the 6th of March to the 13th of March. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor McCleary, seconder. Councillor Cook, all in favour?
Yes.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. That concludes our meeting, councillors and officers and members of the public. Thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed at 5:52 p.m. Thanks, James.